Hello and welcome to this week's Partners Guide magazine show. Partners Guide is a Zambian magazine focusing on business and economic issues within and affecting Zambia. I'm your host Ray Wilburn and we're here at the Latitude 15 Hotel in Lusaka, Zambia. Our guests today are Kasonde Mulenga, Managing Director of Webtrix, a web development company that's been responsible for designing and creating some of Zambia's most popular websites. Also have with me Emma Harvey, the director of a media agency called Adbox. And last but not least, we have Kamiza Chikula, the man with the golden voice, responsible for managing corporate communications at two of Zambia's largest banks. He now works as a voiceover artist and events host. The topic for this week's debate is entitled, "Is Zambia capable of producing media to international standards?" Now, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think international standards are and how do you think that's perceived in Zambia? Kamiza, perhaps if we can start with you.
The fact that we are part of a global village and have access to all the bells and whistles that exist in the world, we already are part of the global media network. By virtue of that, we can no longer hold ourselves accountable to a standard that is localized. Mm-hmm. It means anything that we send out into the world has to match the standards that are set by the countries that have been doing this for a lot longer than we have.
Would you have any advice for local Zambian journalists in terms of, let's say there's a scenario where they're perhaps afraid to ask difficult or probing questions and they want to hold back, but they really want to know about a certain issue. What advice would you give to those journalists if there is something that they want to find out?
Yeah, it's difficult to give advice coming from South Africa, but I think the way we work is that you ask the questions. I'm not talking about live television, I'm talking about going to interview people in government and elsewhere. Ask the questions, edit later. So that's my first advice. And I think you'll be surprised because what I've found through the years, and I worked for the national broadcaster in South Africa, is there's also a sort of an aura about government, about officials that you can't ask them that. You don't ask that question. And the aura is sometimes actually put out there by the entourage that follow these people, not by the ministers or those officials themselves.
Our education system has brought us up really to be civil servants. We were taught learning by rote. We weren't taught to think out the box. Teacher came in and said, "Jalita, do this," and that's what you did. End of story. And that being said, the hard times of the 80s and 90s have perhaps begun to change, to move us into a different plane. And last year, Zambia had one of the most startups in the world, or certainly in Africa. And so we have this underlying entrepreneurial spirit, but the issue is, do we have the psychological grit to go through the pain? And I think this is why these speeches, this talk has been very interesting and to a lot of entrepreneurs, is that you see Richard Branson, you see him flying in his jet, it's so lovely, he whisks in, flies out. But his life is full of his own challenges. In fact, not many people would have heard. He's just gone through one of the hardest days in his career a few weeks ago with the crash. And it's space and exploration has obviously been a huge drive for him throughout his career.
You have been watching today's debate, "Is Zambia capable of producing media to international standards?" You can follow our debate by logging on to www.pgzambia.com and follow the link near the top of the page for polls. You'll find our link and you can click yes or no based on your decision on what our guests have been talking about today. You can also leave a comment in the comment section or follow our debate by liking our Facebook page, which is Partners Guide Magazine. You can also follow us on Twitter at PGZambia. Stay tuned next week for another Partners Guide magazine show. Partners Guide means business in Zambia. Thank you.